Hallmarks should answer three important questions. Who, what, and where? Hammerhead, Key of Geneva, or even Scribble. Would you associate these three terms with vintage watches? Probably not. So in today's video, you will learn what exciting stories engravings on the inside of your Caseback have to tell about your timepiece. I think many of you who clicked on this video are already owners of watches and are well familiar with most of the details involved. And that's what the passion for vintage watches is all about. Details. Through my time on YouTube, I have learned a lot about watches and vintage watches in particular. I wouldn't call myself an expert by any means, but a very solid base knowledge has accumulated. We know the stories behind the watches, what types of hands and indexes there are, and which complications have which functions. Due to our activities as watch dealers, several watches pass through our hands every day, which we naturally open and put through their paces. In the process, I have noticed an often overlooked detail on our beloved gems, namely the Caseback with the associated hallmarks. There you can find the manufacturer, the country or place of manufacture, the designation of the material such as 14K or 18K gold, the reference numbers and serial numbers, scribbles of watchmakers, letterings such as déposé, but also symbols such as keys, hammers, human heads and animals. Details that are easy to miss. So let's jump into this exciting topic in detail. A hallmark is a legally prescribed mark which is applied by an independent testing agency that indicates the fineness of a precious metal. Each country has its own hallmarks, but in today's video we will entirely focus on Switzerland. And it is exciting to know where the term hallmark comes from in the first place. The hallmarking of gold and silverware dates back to the 1300s in Great Britain. At that time, supervisors walked from workshop to workshop and stamped their pieces with a leopard head. It was not until 1478 that the first permanent inspector was announced and items have to be taken to the so-called goldsmith's hall for examination and hallmarking, which is where the term hallmark comes from. However, Swiss watches on the other hand with gold and silver cases did not have to be tested and stamped until 1880. Before that date, gold cases were usually stamped with a carat content by the case manufacturer. So let's take apart the engravings of a Caseback completely. Here you can see the Caseback of an IWC Hermit Jumbo from 1942. So what we can glean from all these applied hallmarks? More than you probably would expect. Who, what, where? We can see that it is an IWC watch from 1942, that it has a 14 karat gold case made by the manufacturer Le Fil de Jules Blum, made in La Chaux-de-Fonds and probably exported from Switzerland to Germany. But how to get this information? The IWC manufacturer's mark is at the top. So far so good. Further down in the center, you'll find the hallmark for 585 gold, which is 14K gold. Also not difficult to decode. But from now on, it becomes increasingly somewhat more challenging. To the right, you can spot a squirrel. There were two standards for gold. The standard is a legal minimum fineness. This refers to the minimum percentage of precious metal like gold, silver, etc. in the alloy. It is expressed in a percentage by weight. As already mentioned, 14 karat gold is also most often stated as 0585. This number means that around the half of the weight is solid gold and the rest is base metal. And this value has been embodied in Switzerland since 1880 by the squirrel shown here. On the other hand, the hallmark for 18 karat gold is the head of Helvetia. The name comes from the name of the ancient people of Switzerland before the Roman conquest, the Helvetians. The female figure of Helvetia appeared during the development of a Swiss natural identity in the 19th century. And Helvetia appears on coins and postage stamps after the founding of the federal state of Switzerland in 1848. Next we turn to the crown hallmark on the left side. This is an export hallmark. This imperial crown is surrounded by a circle representing the sun. This crown had to be punched by manufacturers before they exported gold objects to Germany. However, the presence of one of these German marks on a Swiss watch case is not proof that the piece was ever in Germany. The next mark on the Caseback is a serial number. This is sometimes also found on the movements, and with it you can assign your watch to an exact production date, in the most cases. There are some websites on the internet that provide such lists for free. With our serial number, we can date the watch to 1942. The last hallmark that can be seen on this Caseback is a so-called hammerhead hallmark. The hammerhead was used for watch cases made of gold, platinum and palladium, which were manufactured in Switzerland outside Geneva. This hallmark belongs to the so-called Poinçons de Maître, which for precious metal also includes a hammerhead with handle, a key and a shield. Poinçon means stamp, so a Poinçon de Maître is literally a stamp of the master. This system was introduced to ensure traceability to the case manufacturer for precious metal cases. Most watch manufacturers simply did not want the case maker's name to appear on the back of their watches, as a case maker was usually a separate company that supplied cases to many different watch manufacturers. For this reason, a system of signs and code numbers was developed in the 1920s with different symbols representing the different regions of Switzerland where the cases were manufactured. All the different case manufacturers that existed at that time had a registration number that was added to the symbols. In our case, the hammerhead with the number 100. This number leads back to the La Chaux-de-Fonds-based company Le Fil de Jules Blum, which was active from 1934 to 1974. The hammerhead with the number 136 is, for example, for the C.R. Spillman SA, a very well-known and well-traded case manufacturer that has produced, among others, for Rolex and Vacheron Constantin. However, there were Caseback manufacturers who were well known enough to insist that their cases bore their hallmark. The manufacturer François Borgel, for example, was the best known, and almost all of the Casebacks he produced bore the famous FB hallmark with the key underneath. In the video description, you will find a link to a very interesting article by David Boettcher. There you can go much deeper into the topic and find, among other things, tables where you can see exactly who made the case of your watch. As already described, in addition to the hammerhead, there are also 3 other hallmarks for precious metals, namely the hammer with handle, the key of Geneva, and the shield. The hammer with the handle is a very rare find, and unfortunately there are no known records of when and why it was used. The key of Geneva, on the other hand, was used for watch cases made of gold, platinum and palladium with a thickness of more than 0.3 millimeter that were made in Geneva, like on this Vacheron Constantin with the number 1. In this case, the 1 stands for Wenger, a Geneva-based case manufacturer. Last but not least, the shield. It was used for gold and platinum and palladium watches with a thickness of less than 0.3 millimeter that were manufactured in Geneva. As mentioned a few times, Poinçons de Maître on precious metal case are usually found only on gold, platinum and palladium cases. Although the Swiss Watchmakers Association provided for the making of silver cases the FFBA and crossbow hallmark, but these are only occasionally found on silverware and were apparently rarely applied. So that was it for today. I find a huge exciting topic where I could also learn a lot. Of course, there are still many other hallmarks, for example what concerns the export, but the most important you have seen today. So have a great day and hopefully we'll see you in our next video.